Hi, everybody. So welcome to the Pramada Koradox Kennel visit. Big thank you to Chronicle. I'm totally going to cheat because I have notes for this part. For having us on their live stream. So thank you, Chronicle. For those who don't know me, I'm Maggie Peat, and I'm a second generation breeder of Pramada Longhair Dachshunds. My husband, Tom, he's over in the control booth at Koradox. And we're going to be doing what we would call a kennel visit. We're going to evaluate a number of dogs. We're going to have a general discussion about dachshunds. I have 7. Yeah, I think I have 7 dogs we're going to be sharing with you today, maybe 8. But before we get started, let's just get a quick background on Pramada. So my parents, Pam and Dave Peat, they're now multi-group AKC judges. They started.
Hold on. I think I have some very early, nice photos to share.
Oh, really?
Parents. Yes. Let's just see. Oh, here's one.
Hey, Mom.
They will love seeing.
Are you ready for this?
And then I think we have another one. A young Pam.
I don't see anything yet.
Oh well, you just gotta hope that I'm doing it.
Have to hope it's there.
Yeah, it's there.
Is
and
it?
And then a young Dave. All right, you can continue. I just thought a little embarrassing photos would be fun.
So they were breeding dachshunds before I was born. Even a twinkle in their eye, basically. Tom had a witty comment, but he held back. Their first homebred champion was in 1975. His name was Calvin. I think this is a picture of him being shown by Hannelore Heller. Another little way back moment. And we've come quite a ways since then. I still don't see anything. Okay. So, in the late 90s, my parents decided to focus on Affenpinchers, and I stepped back from dogs in general and started my career. It was a 7-year hiatus, and in 2003, I was ready to get back to showing dogs. And thank you so much to Cindy Geiser and Kay Midler, who shared Bob and Trista with me. They both got involved with, she is actually Callie's mom, Trista.
Yeah, I just put a picture of her up here, and I believe I've got another one of Bob as well. There we go.
So, and I was lucky to be raised at dog shows, basically. Spent my entire life listening to and learning from breeders of not just dachshunds, but all breeds. And really, I put credit to what I've done with Pramada on my parents and the plethora of people who have been instrumental in my life, which are too many to count. And I just want to give a quick thought to a very instrumental dachshund person who passed the other day, Iris Love. She was fantastic for our breed and an amazing woman, and we will all miss her terribly. So we miss you, Iris. But enough about the past. Let's just start with dogs. Anybody, please feel free to pop in questions, or if there's something you want to know about, let me know just in the comments. Tom will be fielding those, and we'll go from there. So this is Callie. I'm going to preface this all. I did not show groom everybody. You need to learn to look through the hair. The hair is just one part of the dog. My mom likes to say that it's the clothes. So.
And Callie's got some thick clothes in her older age.
She's got some pretty special parts to her. The biggest thing about Callie is Callie's how Tom and I met. So Tom came to me after he had a standard long hair, who you'll see, Wally. And he's like, I want a black and tan bitch. And those of you who breed standard long hairs, the response was, don't we all? But he had a black and tan dapple male, which is specifically why he wanted a black and tan, because that's the preferred color for breeding to a dapple. And I said, well, I'm breeding Trista to Quagmire, who's a black and tan, and I expected Trista to carry black and tan. She'd only been bred to homozygous red before then, so I should have black and tans in this litter. If I have a bitch, I think she's worthy, you can have her. Alas, the litter was born, and they were all red. So, we got Callie. Her name was supposed to be Snapdragon.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna be calling her Snapdragon.
So, Callie. She's an RMO. She was the pick bitch of the litter. She was Tom's brood bitch. She has had 3 litters, and she's 10 years old, and she is rocking some, it's actually pretty straight. She's rocking some pretty good long hair curl here in the front, and I'm just going to do a quick overview on her. Remember, 3 litters, 10 years old, not going in the ring anytime soon, and she is an amazing beggar, which Tom is a massive sucker for. So we're going to just start with a quick overall in profile. So looking at this bitch, you're going to start with the head. Let's just get a quick overview. I'm going to tell you about Dachshunds just really quick. Balanced, long, low, level. They are not short-legged Irish setters. They are dwarfs. All Dachshunds are dwarfs. So chondroplastic dwarfs. That means their bones aren't straight. So I'll show you in a bit. This is especially shown in the front. But other than being dwarfs, they're like most dogs. So you want 90-degree angle in the front, 90-degree angle in the rear. Because they are a long dog, you want ribbing to support this long. And you also need keel, which you're not going to be able to see unless you touch, especially a long hair, where the keel is. So some things about this bitch that made her pick, and she has been a great producer, are, let me see if I can move this. She actually has a lovely head. Dachshunds' heads are a wedge from the top and from the side. So wedge, and then from the top, and I'll go through her front here from the front as well, but from the front here as well, a wedge. Prominent eyebrows, meaning, sorry, the bridge bones, and then there you'll see that here. But the front of a dachshund should be oval. If I were to fault this bitch, I would especially say that she's a little more round here. I would prefer her a little more oval. Bring this in a little bit. The fluffy coat doesn't help. But regardless of the roundness, she does have lovely, you don't want to keep that back there for me? She does have a lovely shoulder. We have some skin. Shoulder, upper arm. So see that length from my thumb to probably the first knuckle. Nice angle. Low station. This is where I'm going to try and show you her keel. So this is prosternum, or what some people call forechest. With a long hair, you're going to be fooled. You're going to be fooled by hair. You're going to be fooled by, they have forechest when they're standing, but then they move and it goes away. So just remember, forechest should be prominent, but it isn't everything. So you should be able to run your hand down and it should stop on this forechest. But at least for me, I want a balanced dog. Just because you have a forechest doesn't mean you're spectacular. So then we're going to go here to her keel. Don't mind the top line. I want you guys to focus here on her keel. So she has a massive amount of skin. This keel is here. So from her front legs to the keel, you see that distance? That is a big deal. And that, to me, makes the overall front assembly. So when dogs are being commented on and they say, oh, they have an amazing front. To me, this whole thing is the front. Forechest, shoulder angles, shoulder placement, 2 different things there. The angle is the layback and the length of upper arm. The placement is where is that set on the body. Then this is her ribbing. Again, her keel, her rear. We totally trim her in a sanitary trim. I call it corgi butt. But you can really see her super short hocks here. And then her tail set, which is a little rounded because she's a little chunky, but nice tail set carried out. Flag of the tail. So this is, she's been spayed. So this is what we call spay coat. You see it here on the sides and on the back, but to me, this bitch has a lot of great qualities, and she has produced better than herself across the board. I think all of her dogs, all of her breedings have produced better than her. Would you agree, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we take this minute before we move too far off track of some of the questions we're getting?
Okay.
So first off, we've got Susan Massert says, when you say keel, is that rib length?
No. Okay. So let's be very clear. And she's not a great one. I'm going to talk about keel with the next dog. So
Okay.
she has less hair.
Okay, and so the next dog we will talk about keel, and then we also have just a breeding question. Joanne Middleman asks, how long lived are they? What is your breed club's restriction on the last stage of breeding?
Okay. So Callie's 10. Breeding, we've bred bitches at 7. I think it totally depends on the dog, the specific dog. So you're going to see a bitch who's 6, who we will breed for her 3rd litter. I have no issues with that. How long do they live? It varies. I would say standards range 12 to 15. Would you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
So 12 to 15, assuming that they are kept in good weight. So one of the things that, people talk about how dachshunds go down in the back, everything else, that is probably one of my least worries as a breeder. I have way bigger concerns with cancer and just general overall health of dogs. I'll just do a quick side trip. A lot of people don't, they don't realize this, but dachshunds actually have an issue with hemangiosarcoma. So that's something that we try to keep track of. Anyone who has Goldens, Porties, any of those other breeds, it's hard to decide whether it's genetic, hereditary, or whatever, but that's something that we're kind of keeping track of. But for me, a healthy dachshund should be expected to live standard 12 to 15. The miniatures could live longer, I think, 16, 17. And breeding wise, I would say a healthy bitch easily could have 3 litters between the age of almost 2 to say 6 or 7.
Yeah, as far as breed club restrictions, the only restriction is the AKC restriction, which I believe is like 9 years old or something.
I think it's 9 for bitches.
Yeah.
So just the AKC restrictions. The Dachshund Club of America doesn't actually have a lot of restrictions. They don't even have health guidelines for chick, really. Personally,
just the basics.
Personally, sorry, we test stifles, hearts, thyroids, eyes. So that's what we test, and have never had issues. Knock on wood, under the table. So that's hopefully that answers your question, Joanne. And I'll do the keel on my next dog. Any other questions before I move on?
No, I think that's
cool.
I think that's good. And for all of you asking questions, just go ahead and ask them, and we will try and get to them as we go through, and they are pertinent to the discussion we're having. We'll do a more open Q&A at the end. So, and if you've asked a question and we've gone a while and we haven't answered it, go ahead and ask it again because it gets lost in the feed, and I'll just come back to it.
All right, everybody. This is Daffy. She has some fans out there. She is Callie's daughter. I'm going to preface this by saying probably one of the best dachshunds I've bred. Tom and I have bred. Hi. So, she is an ROMX. She is, like I said, out of Callie. Let's go back. Dachshunds typically free whelping, fantastic moms. This bitch had her first litter 8 puppies? 8 puppies.
Yeah, she had 8 puppies in 2 hours.
It was like a gumball machine.
Yeah.
Tom
they just kept coming.
I was like, I'm going to take a quick shower. He screamed at me, no, get back here. So this is Daff. Really quick. To me, this bitch has an amazing front. She's in what I would call a quick groom. I'll show you guys grooming on one of the dogs we're going to put on the table. But let's just talk about this. This bitch was opposite sex at the National. But I'm going to jump straight to the keel, what you're talking about. So she's waiting to come in season, and she will be bred for her final time. So the hair is falling out in clumps. Okay, keel is on any dog. The keel is the bone that joins the ribbing together. So it's what starts the prosternum here, and then it continues underneath the ribbing, and it's at the end of the ribs that join together. So on her keel is here. She got that from her mom and her dad. So here's her keel. This is her ribbing, okay, back here. So when people are talking about keel, some people think this is keel. Well, it's part of it. The prosternum is part of the keel, but think of it if you've seen a boat, that part of the boat that goes underneath, that the wood is all, and it's the deepest part, that's the keel of the boat and the keel of the dog here. So this is the end of it, this is the front of it, where the first ribs are here and all the way under. I hope that, let me know if that made sense. I'll go back to it again. So, shoulders, upper arm, okay? This is what I call the angles, and then this overall placement. So it's placed here. I would say 9 times out of 10, I would love to take a Longhair's front and shift it back an inch. Frequently. Some I'd like to shift it back 3 inches. But on this one, this is her shoulder, and this is her upper arm. Look how long that upper arm is. You would love it to be the same. This and this. This is pretty darn good. I'm going to finish this. I'm going to turn her face forward to you. Her loin is a little long. If I were to change anything on this bitch, I would bring this in a little, like an inch.
Speaking of the loin, let's kind of just go into proportions a little bit. You say that it's a little long because we're looking at the dachshund as the head being one part, and so when we look at it, we want the dachshund body to be 3 parts, which would mean 1, 2, 3 in the head, and then the body 3 lengths long. 2 lengths long. Sorry, neck, 2 bodies.
Neck, 2 bodies. 1, 2, and then you could even go as height. But this is like proportions. 1, 1, 1, 1.
So we look at her and we say, well, her ribbing to keel is about 60-40, and we'd like her ribbing to be a little longer. But in actuality, what we would prefer is her loin to be a tad bit shorter.
So her ribbing is actually quite long. But this to this, I would like it more 70-30, not 60-40.
Right.
So you could make her ribbing longer, I guess, but more, that would be a really big dog. To me, she's a big bitch in the first place. So if I shorten this an inch, to me, the proportions would be better. So finally, her rear. She has a very nice rear angle after, how many puppies now have we had? 8 and 6, 14 puppies. She is not quite as true on the go away. I'm going to move her for you guys. The hips have widened. But she had her litters before she won at DCA and plethora of other times. To me, a quality bitch that is put together properly can have a litter, and sometimes they will even look better after a litter. To me, this bitch just matured. She didn't lose anything. after having that first litter. After the second, we've definitely gotten a little more looseness. She had to have more conditioning. But to me, she's still a beautiful bitch. I'm going to turn her and I'll show you the rear so you can see what I'm talking about in a minute. But this front is very much what I'm talking about when I say oval. Beautiful head. Okay. Show them the top. Okay. Round. Oval. See the difference? How much more oval hers is versus Callie's was round, kind of like squished together more. More oval. Dimples. Again, this is the top. This is the beginning of the keel. The ribbing starts here. This is the first short little rib. So the keel starts here and it continues underneath. And if you have a dog with good keel, you should have to feel it from the side. You shouldn't be able to feel it from the front. You shouldn't be able to feel the end of it without sticking your hand all the way underneath there. Their feet should be tight, and while hers are okay, I'm really proud of my feet, so I'll show you some beautiful feet in a bit. Daff. Rears. Contrary to what some people think, Dachshunds should have a rear too. Back in the olden days, there were some breeders who said that a Dachshund stopped at the ribbing. And I think that we had some issues with rears in the past. So I believe that a Dachshund is, I said this earlier, a balanced dog. And the standard calls for that they are well balanced. So I want angles in the front and the rear. And I would like them the same. The standard would like them the same. So again, straight hocks. She comes in a little here on the rear. I forgive it after 14 puppies. But she's a beautiful mover. And I'm going to do that for you guys.
Yeah, you ready to do some movement?
Yeah.
All right.
We're going to try that. Oh, so we can't do movement?
No, we can.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to do movement. So I'm going to give a little disclaimer. This is not a show ring. This is my lumpy backyard. But I'm going to show you profile. A couple of things that I want you to keep in mind on movement. I said balance. So we don't want flippy fronts. You don't want belly scratching. Somebody asked previously what's sickle-hocked. So I don't have any that I can show you, but sickle-hocked, you'd also maybe call it a belly scratcher. So the rear, it would be super angulated. This rear leg would go like this, and then it would never come past perpendicular. It would literally just go like this. And it would reach under very, very closely. Keep talking? Okay. So you won't see that on any of my dogs, really. Some have more rear drive than others. They also shouldn't essentially fly around the ring. Dachshunds aren't really a running breed per se, but you want the reach and the drive to be similar. On the Dachshund Club of America page is actually a movement, it's kind of a flash video that shows movement, like a structure moving, and you can see it, a good front, a poor rear, a short upper arm, and actually I really like it, and that's on the Dachshund Club America webpage under education. It's a really good thing. So that's my little Daff, and so I was saying that she's 6, so she's going to be 6 in June, and we'll breed her again. And we're actually going to breed her to a dog that I'm going to show you. Tom says that she's produced 2 beautiful litters, so I'm allowed to do what I want this time, which may not be what he wanted to do, but I get to do it, so. Daff. Let's go. Come on. Come on, Daff. Come on, Daff. What do you think, Tom?
Looked good to me. Do you want to do it again? I think it was good.
Okay, we'll leave it. Anybody have questions on that? Tom's gonna go back to the control center. You guys can ask some questions before I put her away.
Let's see. Let me scroll through and see what we've got here.
Okay. Hi. Let's talk about temperament while we're waiting. Because this one, so if Daffy had her way, she would crawl inside of, especially Tom, but also me.
So Wendy Snyder asks, do you put more thought into your process of who to breed to according to pedigree, phenotype, or genotype, or are they all equal?
Oh.
That's a big one. I guess we can touch on breeding right now.
Yeah. We can do that. Breeding. Since this is our next litter, we actually have 2 breedings planned. The one we have actually planned to breed her last month, but as you guys all know, they don't always cooperate. You'll see here in a bit. So Daffy is probably going to be more on schedule, right? And she's due to come in season in the next literally 2 to 3 weeks. The hair loss is a key indicator as well as timing. So let's talk about what I think about. So I am a huge proponent of line breeding. It's funny, the people will look at our pedigrees. So coefficient is something that some people look at. We have very tight line breedings that we do. I believe that if you do a very tight line breeding, you can then breed out and have some flexibility. What does line breeding do? Consistency. So this bitch actually is out of Callie, who's pretty close line bred. She's, like I said, Trista and Quagmire. Callie was bred to Rugby, who I think we have a picture of Rugby. Rugby is a dog that I imported from Australia. So talk about an outcross, right? So like I said, I'm a fan of line breeding. I had very tightly line bred bitches, and I wanted to bring in a dog that had good front. Also, I wanted a softer temperament. So my males and females could get a little fiery with each other, never with people, but with each other, a little too dog assertive, aggressive, however you want to phrase it. So I wanted to soften that. And so I brought in Rugby. And here's a funny story that Daffy shouldn't even exist. So Callie was supposed to be bred before Rugby arrived, and the breeding didn't take. So because she wasn't pregnant while Rugby was here, she was bred to Rugby. So it's kind of ironic, and we're lucky that that happened. So in answer to your question, they're not equal weighted because pedigree is, that doesn't always mean anything, because if that was the case, it wouldn't matter if you bred a litter mate bitch, the same litter, 2 bitches to the same dog, you would expect to get all the same things, and that's not what happens. So that, to me, that's the key of understanding the difference. So I always look at pedigree. But to me, phenotype is, it doesn't matter what the pedigree looks like. If a dog has something that I cannot take or will not deal with, then I would never breed to it, even if the pedigree was amazing. So for most of my breedings, I typically start with phenotype, but I also have I like to say I have a buffet of frozen semen available. And the next dog you're going to see is actually Daffy's son, who was bred to Bubba, Havana Joe. And that was very, very much heavy on decision based on pedigree, which is genotype. And that, is a key to me when you include genotype. Part of that is the preservation of particular lines. Tom, talk about it, because you have a big
let's look at
part
it.
of these
People look at study pedigrees and they go, oh, well, we can put together this line breeding with this dog and this dog, or this dog's in the mother's pedigree and this dog's in the father's pedigree, and we can line. But you have to, at least a few generations back, know what has been produced and know what those dogs looked like. So, like you said, we bred Bubba to Daffy because it's an older dog, but you knew, you bred his father, Ben. So you knew that dog. You knew you wanted that in the pedigree. You knew what Bubba looked like. We knew that would be a good phenotype to go to Daffy. So, I mean, you have to you have to look at it more than just the print on the paper. You have to know what that print means. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, I
think there's a lot of people who don't know pedigrees, though, as well. So that's something that, for me, I studied pedigrees my whole life. So I could tell you this bitch's pedigree probably 8 generations back, all on both sides, including the Aussie dog. Okay, maybe only 5 on the Aussie dog. But I think that's really important. I think it's something that a lot of people don't look at historical pictures or historical pedigrees.
Well, and as far as like breeding coefficient and line breeding goes and going too tight, we live in an age with technology where, I mean, I use a program. We put in dachshunds going back as far as we can. I mean, we've got dachshunds in our pedigrees going back to the 70s. Stuff, dogs I don't even know, but it helps to create a more accurate coefficient number. And we've looked at breedings. We pop it into the thing. We're, oh, that would be a nice thing to do. We pop it into the program and we go, oh yeah, no, we're not doing a 30% coefficient. So, for us, that's too high. I mean, a lot of people would say 20 is too high, and I think that is our max. We try to keep our coefficients between 10 and 15 for what we consider a tight line breeding.
Less than 10, we consider an outcross.
Well, yeah,
to be honest.
Yes.
in our lines. And it's very different breed to breed. I want to be very clear on that.
Right. Dachshunds have a huge gene pool. You're not going to want to throw in a 20% coefficient on an Affenpinscher. I mean, the gene pool is too small for that.
So, Wendy, does that answer that question? I feel like I felt like I touched on it, but it's such a huge.
Right. That could be a whole nother.
Yeah. Speaking of breed, we talked about taking Daffy, who I think is a beautiful specimen of the Pramada Koradox breeding program. She's actually a Koradox Pramada. And I was talking about temperament. So I brought in the Aussie dog for temperament, softness. The Longhairs have that softness to them. And if she had her way, like I said, she would literally crawl inside of Tom. So I'm going to bring her son out.
And at some points I have been choking because she was trying to crawl inside of me.
So her son's name is Edward. Tom picked him out at, 5 days.
Well, because at 5 days old, we had this. How could you not love baby Edward? He was orangey at that point. He wasn't Edward yet.
He was orangey. This dog's going to be my sample for coat.
Johan Tote, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, says, where do you get the program to get the COI numbers? I actually use a program called Ped Pro. There are quite a few out there, but that's the one that I like. So.
This is Edward. This is Daffy, who you just saw, and Bubba, Homar Savannah Joe. Thank you, Ryan. He will be 18 months in May. He's 3 points shy of a major, and he has, a massive hard-on, and his top line is totally out.
3 points shy of finishing.
3 points shy of finishing, and I just need him to relax a minute, because he's super excited. He's
happy.
Yeah. Don't look at the top line. I'm just going to talk about his hair. This dog is almost air dried. I want you to see this. Don't move, I'm gonna grab a comb or a brush. So, look at this. I just went backwards on this coat. Look at how beautifully it just lays down. So, long hairs. More is not better. Quality over quantity. These are my views.
He's never going to have a profuse coat, which the standard does call for a coat that is not too profuse to mass type. So
I don't think they should look like Cocker Spaniels. That's better, Edward. That's better. This dog has been shown 2 weekends. Totally not normal trained like I would have. But so let's talk about his structure. We love this dog, by the way. We finished 2 bitches out of the litter already, and his brother is finished. We held him back because we wanted to show him at specialties, and then this. So so he's not finished because we were waiting. One of the things I want you guys to see on this dog is look at this beautiful neck into shoulders. Okay, this isn't groomed in. This isn't trained in because he's not trained. So beautiful arch here at the nape of his neck. Very smooth. Lovely tail set. So he probably looks tall to you guys. So he's a little tall. Here, I give you an example. Here's my fist under here. I can't lift up my thumb. I can just touch the point. My dogs don't mature till they're probably 3 or 4.
Well, and you say he's kind of tall. I would say he's at the right length, height off the ground. Like, to me, Callie is too low. Some of you may remember the dog Sky we showed the last couple years, and beautiful dog. But again, one of the faults with him, I believe, he was just a bit too low to the ground. So anyway,
and that difference of opinion between Tom and I, where I feel like I would lower this dog a ½ inch, but it will happen because when this dog is 3, he won't look like this. This dog isn't even 18 months old. He's a puppy. And what I was talking about is maturity-wise, a dog that is finished, meaning fully matured, at 18 months of age, to me, that isn't a dog that I necessarily will want to keep, because I am concerned that they are going to be then overdone. So when they're truly mature, that there will be too much dogs. So
well, and let's clarify, when you mean dog, you actually mean a male,
a dog,
because we have bitches that by 12 to 18 months are fully mature, and that's how they stay.
Yes, so. But our males, the dogs, typically aren't mature until 3 or 4.
So while we were talking about height a little bit, Maddie asks, is there a height to length ratio as far as proportions go?
Per the standard, no. So just to be clear, the standard doesn't say anything about how tall they are, how long they are. The FCI standard does. just, you know, the FCI standard, this dog would have too much body. In the FCI standard, they want it to be this, so it should be 1/3, 2/3. So 1, 1, 1, 1. So essentially they would want this dog to be either this much taller, or he would have to have longer legs or something. So the FCI standard is very different than the US standard. So the US standard, while it is very long, does not have a lot of specifics.
Right. A lot open to interpretation.
Right. So, I can tell you how I interpret it, which is I look at a dachshund and how I put my hand underneath. So like this is my hand. It's kind of a Scotty thing where you put your hand under and you shouldn't have a ton of room. Like if I put my hand under this dog and I could put my thumb up, which there are some dogs you can do that with, to me that dog is too tall. But I think proportion wise, couple things. This front leg should be at where the deepest part of the chest, okay? And this shoulder needs to be behind the neck. But what you're looking for lengthwise is, I think the length of the dog is more dependent upon the proportions. So if you have good proportions, I mean, if a dog had amazing ribbing, it could be a little longer. I have a story. I had a dog that I showed in juniors. His name was Boondocks Yorktown. Beautiful dog, amazing producer. People kept saying he's so short, he's so short. He had amazing shoulder placement. His shoulders were probably back here. And he had ribbing to loin, probably 75-25. Based on those proportions, that dog always looked very cobby, very short, because the shoulders were so far back and the ribbing was so long. But if you measured that dog from the point of the prosternum, meaning out here, to the base of his tail or his hips, his butt, he was actually the same length as the other dog I showed in juniors. Exactly the same length, within like a ½ inch of each other. But when you looked at them, the length difference, you would have assumed that the dog Bert I showed was 2 inches longer. But it's all based on where the dog's angles were and the proportions. Very different. And unfortunately, Maddie, the standard just doesn't say what it's supposed to be. So there's a lot of interpretation.
I think that's where having an eye and looking at it and seeing if the dog looks balanced, because the standard does say the dog looks balanced. So if a dog is too tall or too low, it's clearly going to be out of balance. So that's one way to help look at it, I guess. Crystal Mason asked, does shoulder placement change throughout maturity?
Well, that depends on your breeding program. Does our shoulder placement change?
Not usually.
If I would say it doesn't change, what may change is the overall shape. Charles is having a moment.
Is he?
Yeah.
Side note, was Yorktown's call name Eric?
Yes.
Yes, Sissy, it was.
It's a beautiful dog, Sissy. He is in almost all the pedigrees. Okay, so shoulder placement. Okay, so when we look at the dachshunds, so as they age, some things that can change. This can change. This dog is, like I said, 18 months. I expect he will fill out some more. When this dog was a little tiny puppy, his shoulders were here, but this wasn't necessarily as well developed. So I think that shoulder placement in my dogs doesn't change. I think that in general, they can change as they grow, these angles can shift at times. I think that our truest evaluations are 6 and 12 weeks, would you say, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think that about 6 to 7 weeks, and then again at 12 is where
Yeah.
we really, between 8 and 12 weeks, they change so much. And one dog that I would say, oh, this is clearly the pick, will suddenly be, he's going to a pet home, which we'll actually touch on that a little bit. We had some questions prior in the week on how we decide who goes to show homes and who goes to pet homes, and so we'll touch on that in a little bit later.
So, Edward, I've shown you 3 generations now. Callie, Daffy, this is Edward. This dog was produced based on our overall breeding plan. So, sorry, Daffy has left her mark on me. So overall breeding plan. And by that, I mean, we don't ever do a breeding without knowing what the goal is of that breeding. Meaning, are we planning to breed that puppy to something else? Are we just seeing what we get? Because to me, that's not really a good focus. So we wanted a male from this litter. That was our plan. We wanted a male. And you should never breed, like I said, without knowing what you're doing going forward. So this dog is Daffy, who has rugby in it. And then we took Daffy, who has Callie, who has Bubba, back to Bubba. So we got that Australian dog I brought in, but this dog can be bred to bitches that we have not produced yet. The bitch we were actually going to breed him to, we placed after she had her litter.
Yeah, we ultimately decided that we didn't need to go forward with her. So we found her a great home. And now Edward can wait for someone to be born for him.
But, you know, it's... When this dog was born, we had some things in mind that we really wanted. To me, his coat is amazing, and anyone who says you don't breed for coat, I don't breed for quantity of coat, but I sure as heck breed for quality of coat.
And his temperament is amazing.
And I breed for temperament. So this right here, how I said Daffy would crawl inside you, he is very similar to that. Just the overall temperament is so sweet. He's known as Baby Edward. He'll probably be Baby Edward for his whole life. And like I said, the whole point of that breeding was to get a male. His sister is actually going to go to Australia, back to Rugby's breeders, Jim and Lyndall, whenever they're allowed to fly back and contribute back to the Briar Miss breeding program. But I'm going to move Edward. So if everybody's ready, I'm going to let you guys see. Because before we fall in a dog on the table, any of you prospective judges or current judges, any good handler can put together a dog in the stack. Anyone that is a good handler. I'm going to repeat that for all of you judges. Any handler worth their salt can train a dog to look good standing still, especially if they have hair. Really hard to change what a dog's structure is on the move. So if anyone is judging and wants to take 2 cents from me, don't look at them standing still for your first impression. Have everybody go around the ring. We're going to let you all see Edward.
Hopefully he walks.
Yeah. Edward! Edward! Hi. Okay. You ready? Easy. Good boy. Let's go. Edward. Come on. Edward. Good boy. Good boy. Hey. You want me to do that again, Tom? You think it was good? I'll put him back up on the table for a minute. Oh, because there's a delay, so. Oh, that's his mother that's talking. So, she likes to, she has a very song-like voice.
So let me look through and see if there's any. We've got a lot of breeding questions on. Why don't we cover a couple of those before Daffy? We know. Mike Winkler asks, in discussing maturity changes, when does the rear come into play, and when do they really use it?
When do they really use their? Okay, so when they're puppies, so 6, 7, 8 weeks, you are typically going to see the tail straight up in the air, kind of like the staff on a boat, where they're just trying to figure out how to get things moving. So 6 to 8 weeks, you're still early.
Yeah, I mean, until they're like,
I would
5,
say
6 months old, you're really not, getting solid movement.
True rear movement. You should still see the angles, but I would say by 12 weeks, you should be able to see what you're getting. My first thing right off the bat is hocks. So if they've got long hocks, you're going to see that from the beginning. That's not going to change. The rear angles aren't going to change. Just like the shoulders don't really change, the rear angles aren't going to change. Their ability to control it is what you're not seeing.
Stephen Lisker asks, at what age would you make a pick?
Sometimes you don't have a choice. Because some people want a show, I call them show potential puppies. We will not make a decision on a show potential puppy until at least 12 weeks.
Right, and if we don't have a solid, yes, this is the one we're keeping, then we will just keep them until we finally make that decision. And we've kept dogs past 9 months where we've actually got points on them and then decided, nope, this isn't what we're doing, and placed the whole litter.
Yep.
So, it really just depends. So sometimes you just know right off. Sometimes it takes a while, and sometimes they just never turn out.
I find it very hard. This is a personal thing. So what I consider a show potential, you may not. What you consider a show potential, I may not. I looked back at the history of since I started doing just the long-hair dachshund breeding. Edward, come on. So since 2004, essentially, over half our puppies are placed in companion homes. They're not even shown. Is that because they're not worthy of being shown? Probably not. But when I place a dog in a show potential home, I expect that whoever is taking it in the ring, and I have a lot of owner handlers that I'm very proud of, and I expect and want a Pramada Koradox dog, when someone opens a catalog, I want the response to be, oh no, one of theirs are here. That's what I want. I want when that owner puts that dog on the table, that the judge smiles, that somebody standing outside the ring tells that person they have a beautiful dog, and I am proud of producing it. I will never place a dog in a home to be shown that I wouldn't show myself, because it's my reputation. I have dogs that I've sold overseas. Would never sell a dog overseas that I wouldn't be proud to show myself. I sell the best that I produce overseas.
So we're getting some more questions here, and we're at about an hour in now. So why don't we put Edward up, and why don't you grab Wally? Vesta asks, could you talk a little bit more about head shape, planes, etc.? And I think Wally will be a good dog to do this with.
I gotta grab him. Hold on.
Yeah, he's over in the run. So
Wally. Wally. Wall. Come
In the
on, man.
meantime, let's see if we have any more old pictures to
Hurry,
look
hurry,
at.
hurry.
Shh, boys. This is Bloogie, one of Pam and Dave's first dachshunds, pre-Maggie, I believe. Let's see. Do we have any more? This is Honeysuckle. So this is this Bert's mom?
Grandma. She was the first Pramada brood bitch.
So it's funny because I look at her and I see very similar to Callie in this dog. Anyway, so we've got Wally up here on the table now that we're back from the past. So let's talk about these head planes first while we've got them up here.
So,
and it's a black dog, so it's a little harder to see. It's just the way it is.
The dachshund standard, I said earlier, they don't really give you numbers. So it doesn't say that the back skull and the muzzle are equal. It doesn't say that. What the standard says, and I have, per my notes, the heads say tapers from top or sides. So when viewed from the above or the side, the head should taper. But nowhere, I'm reading, nowhere does it give us dimensions, proportions. So you're on your own, Vesta. Sorry. No, I'm kidding. I think this dog has a lovely head. So it says it tapers. To me, this dog is a very minor taper, and I'll show you. Most people would call this elegant.
Maggie, because he's so dark, I think you need to do this facing him a little more diagonal so that we can. Yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay. So here in the profile, beautiful taper. What I love about this dog, do you see this underjaw?
And she's not talking about his 14-year-old gray either.
No, this is amazing and beautiful. So very slight. There's not a stop. So he's almost 1-to-1. Prominent occiput in an Afghan, not so much in a dachshund, as you probably can see. It's not like I have a big prominent occiput there. But it does say they should have prominent bridge bones here on the eyes. It actually calls for a slight arch and a slight arch here for a Roman nose. Some people will take offense and don't like it. They think it's a borzoi head. It's actually what the standard calls for, is a Roman nose. I think this dog has a lovely head. I'll show you another one. Daffy, the bitch I showed you before. I think she has a beautiful head. Edward has a more a houndier head. It's not what I would consider.
Edward's head isn't our favorite. Sometimes I call him Headward, but that's just a playful nickname.
It's true. And Tom and I are both probably harder on our dogs than most people. So this is Wally. Some people had asked about grooming.
We're not going to get into a whole grooming thing here. We do have a great couple grooming videos on our YouTube channel that you can check out. It's the Pramada Koradox YouTube channel. But we're just going to do a quick clip down on Wally. 1, because he's a little hairy, and 2, he's a dapple, and we'll be able to see his neck dappling a bit more once it's clipped down.
So you'll see this on the grooming video, but forechest, right? So this dog's, his structure is not going to change. But some people can't see it because they'll be like, oh, well, he has no forechest, or it's all hair, or he has no neck because it's all stuffy. I'm going to clip him down. My rule is 3 fingers above the stop here. Okay, so 3 fingers. And I would like everyone to know my preferred grooming method is thinning shears. He's a black and tan, so I can cheat. The last dog I'm going to put on the table, I clipped literally 3 days ago, and you'll see why I don't like clippers. So, this dog is an apple, as you can see. He is 13.
He'll be 14 in May.
He'll be 13 in May.
You're right. He'll be 13 in May.
This was Tom's first standard long hair and why he wanted Callie to be black and tan. This dog probably has one of the best ribbing to loin ratios that I've had my hands on. Stand well. Okay, so here's his shoulders. Here's his forechest. This is the front of his keel. This is the end of his keel here. You guys see that? It is literally like I can practically touch his penis. It's so long. This is his ribbing. This is his loin. That's why this dog has gone nowhere except to our friend Debbie's house. And he has the best temperament. Not the best black and tan coat ever. He's 13, so it's hasn't gotten any better than, you know, it was. It was a little better when he was younger, but it's not the best black and tan coat. You tend to get kind of wavies in black and tans. I think there's a propensity to not have as good of a coat in a black and tan. But this, to me, this dog, he went opposite sex at Westminster, at Tom's very first Westminster, under breeder judge Guy Javon. He's beautiful. And he can still move. I think we have time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we can do a quick movement on him. I mean, for almost 13, he does pretty good. It's more of a saunter nowadays.
So again, this dog isn't show groomed. You should be able to see the qualities of a dog. You got to look through the hair. Just because he has a heavy sweater on. Hi, you excited? Come on, Wall. Come on, Wall. Ready? Okay. Come on, let's go. Wally. Come on, Wall. Come on, Wally. Come on, let's go. Well. Yeah? You ready? Good boy. Do you guys see that expression? So this is that, falling off a gopher hole. So this expression, so the eyes, this is a great way to see eyes and ear placement. The ears should be high. They should frame the face. Hi, Daff. When alert, so see how they're framing the face on their own. I'm not holding them up. They just do that on their own. Almond dark eye. See that? Beautiful head. We're gonna do Ryder. Do you want me to put him back up? Do you have questions?
Yeah, we have some questions. Let me,
You were very good for that, Wall. Very good. Very good. Hey, Daffodil.
All right, so Vicky Ronchetti asks, is the texture of his coat what you don't like?
Yes.
It's very fine and wispy.
It's wispy, it's curly.
He has a lot of hard top coat, but he has a lot of under, very fine.
Tom calls it duff.
Yeah, I do.
He calls it under duff. So if all of his coat was like this and straight, but see all these curlies and if you felt it, there's no refinement.
Let's. I feel like we've been kind of, saying how beautiful all these dogs are, and of course they're the dogs we kept, so we think they're beautiful. But let's have a look at Wally's rear, because let's be honest, this is not a great. He uses it well, but it's not a great rear.
It's a short hawk.
Yes,
it is a very
short hawk. And he has lots of pants in the way.
Hold on. I got something. I can hold one side, but I can't hold two sides at once. Okay, so this is him standing naturally. So this is a traditional wall. I know the cookies are over there.
This is what we would call
cowhawk. He doesn't typically produce this, so I can try to straighten it.
And as he's gotten older, he definitely isn't holding it as strong as he used to.
But it doesn't matter how close together I put them or how far apart I put them, they come in like that. Yep. He doesn't produce that.
Yeah, no, we haven't seen that.
He doesn't produce it, and the hocks are nice and short. So as you can see, the hocks are nice and short. But this dog, his rear is not his strong suit. But this is a key thing that when I say, you have to gauge every dog. Okay, that rear isn't good, but that ribbing, keel, and short loin that I talked about.
Well, and he's been a fantastic producer for the, I would say, pretty limited breeding he's done.
Yeah.
Being a dapple, he definitely isn't used as much as we normally would.
Well, and when we say not used as much, we don't allow him to be used as much. We are definitely more selective about where he's bred.
That's a conversation for another
for another time. But for me, this body, which he produces, and the beautiful type that he has, and his size, which is also related to his ribbing to loin ratio, more than offsets the weakness in the rear. And that's where, as a breeder, I recognized and said this dog is important. So, and I mean, I married into this one, so.
It's true. You did. Why don't you grab one of his kids? Let's start with Matilda.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Matilda the Munchkin?
Matilda the Munchkin.
It's his granddaughter.
Right. Sorry. This will be his Wally's granddaughter.
Tilly.
Matilda is she's one that didn't make the cut. She is in a wonderful, loving pet home, but we thought it would be nice to show a dog that we decided didn't quite make our standards for keeping as a show breeding potential bitch.
Tilly. So before anyone asks,
hence why she's not show trained either.
She's small.
Matilda's about 12.5 pounds.
Her sire is, I think he's about 15 pounds.
Yeah, I would say.
He's a mini from a breed down, and her mom is about 22 pounds. We feel that, especially our males, Edward isn't, but a lot of the standard long hair males are too big.
Quite a few of our males in the last few years have been getting up in
30s,
in the upper to mid to upper 30s in weight and size. And while our girls were keeping right around that nice 20 to 22, we would have littermate boys that were up in the 30s, which for us is getting too large. For example, Wally in show weight was 27 pounds. To me, that's a perfect size for a standard long hair male. Charles, which we'll see in a bit, 30 pounds at show weight, about the top end that we like. Maggie's old dog Brando, 27 pounds. So once we started breaking that 30-pound weight, we decided, okay, we need to do something to kind of bring these boys back down. Hence, breeding to a larger mini to one of our girls to try and see if see if it'll work. So this was a bit of an experiment, and this is part of that experiment.
So that size difference, I'll show you the last bitch that we show. She's about 20 pounds, and her brother was 32 in show weight. So this is Tilly, ungroomed. Her mom is sitting over there, so I'm gonna be nice. She's actually a very nice bitch. I'll be perfectly honest. We could take her in the ring and finish her probably easily. But there are some things that we feel we have better. One, we have a sister that we will be getting to breed, but a couple things here. So, croup. See this? See how kind of rounded this is? And when I pull out the tail, how it's more rounded. When she stands on her own, especially, you can see this roundedness. See how I can put my hand, how much smaller she is than Edward, but my hand is well underneath her.
Yeah. So why don't you put her closer to the table to you, so you can actually get a better view of
how small she really
is. Because the further out on the table you put her, the larger dogs look.
So, shoulders. They're not bad, you know. This is her shoulders. I'd like to move them back, but they're not bad, you know. This upper arm, there is very little forechest, so without hair, see? Very little forechest. Her ribbing to loin, not bad.
Yeah, pretty average.
But her keel is literally here, like right behind her front legs. Short hocks, pretty decent rear. A little straight for me here in the second thigh. But they're not all keepers. And this goes back to what I was talking about before, that when we take a dog in the ring, I'm not comparing my dogs to what are in the ring. I'm not saying, oh, is this better than whatever I saw last weekend or 2 months ago. That's not how Tom and I evaluate. We're saying when we look at this dog, we are going by the standard, which I have in here, and what we think is the quintessential long-haired dachshund that we want to produce.
Well, and also,
are they better than what we have?
Yeah, what we already have in the house. And, why keep something that we feel isn't as good as stuff we already have?
Right.
So,
and we've actually done, like Tom said, we've had an entire generation that Daffy, as a matter of fact, when Daffy's litter was born, we had 2 bitches that we had planned to breed. But when Daffy and the other rugby litter we had born essentially at the same time were about 7 months of age, we knew they were better than those bitches that we were considering breeding, and we decided not to breed them.
Yeah, we looked at them and we said, why are we keeping these? We just produced stuff that what we considered was much better. So to us, keeping what we had, we had put time in them, we would finish them, we were, put money into them, all that stuff. But yeah, we had to look at it objectively and say that this is,
why go backwards?
Why go backwards? So we placed them. They're in wonderful homes, and we went forward.
So this is Matilda.
It's Matilda. So we had a question, Virginia Thompson. Do you think you might try another breed down? So why don't we clarify that what we did?
Not a breed
down.
So I'm going to make this very clear. I don't breed minis right now. So the breeding that I did wasn't a breed down. To me, the definition of a breed down is the intent to get miniatures. That was not our intent. We were never intending to breed into miniatures. We specifically were just doing a breeding using a smaller male because we wanted smaller standard dachshunds. So that, to me, it's a very different mindset. A breed down is I'm intending to breed for miniatures, and people who are breeding for miniatures, that's a tangent of mine, but there's only one class that they have to be 11 pounds or under. If they're not in that open mini class, or you're not willing to put them on a scale, they're just a dachshund, in my opinion. I'm going to get her brother. So this was actually the goal of our breeding. We wanted a male.
This is Ryder. We call him Little Man.
Little man.
He's about 17 and a half, 18 pounds.
Yep. I told you before we're breeding Daffy. This is who we're breeding Daffy to.
So this will be a total outcross breeding. It's Daffy's last litter. Her first 2 litters, she produced beautiful puppies. So we decided, okay, let's try this little experiment. You don't know if you don't try. And worst case scenario, we will have a litter of beautiful dachshunds for loving pet homes.
So this is Ryder. He is literally blowing all his hair.
He's living with a group of flatcoats who are all in season, and he's just having so much fun being under them.
He finished, with 4 specialty wins, I think. He is not quite a year old. This dog has a beautiful head, so you should be able to see. One of the things I don't like so much about Wally is his markings. So he's really, I call it smutty. So his tan isn't especially bright. So the dachshunds, 2 colored dachshunds are supposed to have very specific markings, just like Dobermans or any other black and tan dogs. You know, these 2 colors, two, you know, tan points. They should never have tan on their ears. That's a mismark. Even if they're dapple, they shouldn't have tan on their ears. The tan should only be on the inside. Hi, good boy. Okay, so this dog. Lots of bone. We haven't talked about bone yet. Dachshunds should have bone. They should have substance. They should be heavier than they look. When you go to pick up a dachshund, you should be surprised by how heavy they are. Hi.
Yeah, I mean, this dog is a perfect example. I look at him and I think, oh, 13, 14 pounds, and I pick him up and I'm like, oh, he's a dense little sucker. I watched my language.
Yeah. So, this is where I was talking about coat. His coat is better than Wally's. He actually, Callie, who he lives with, brought him a little damp, mostly dry. So nice ear furnishings. His coat is straighter. There's show pictures of him if he's actually done out from straight being washed. His coat is lovely. So let's talk about his structure. Upper arm, shoulders, forechest. So see how much more forechest he has than the bitch? I don't think that dogs and bitches should have different amounts of forechest, but if I'm going to keep one, it's going to have the forechest. His keel is here. Remember I told you Matilda's keel was right by the front legs? His keel is back here. Ribbing to loin. Okay. Those proportions are what I want. Those proportions are why I want to breed him to Daffy. His size, why I want to breed him to Daffy. To me, Daffy is a little big, just overall. Beyond the long loin, I think she's a bigger bitch. If I could take her down 2 pounds, I would.
Like we were talking about, we like our males between 27 and 30. Well, Daffy's a 27-pound bitch, so she's up at the size that we like our boys to be. So bringing her down. That being said,
she can pop out 8 puppies in 2 hours.
So we'll take it.
We'll take it. Ryder. So if I were to fault him, I'd like his second thigh a little longer. You can see that here, a little longer. It's a little short. Turn him around.
The black dogs really are much harder to see. Yeah.
So let's remember, he's not even a year old. Not as strong in the rear. I'm okay with that as a young dog. But nice short hocks. And let me show you a head. And the wrap on the front. Let's talk about this front. This dog turns out slightly. There is nothing wrong with it. I'm going to repeat that. There is nothing wrong with them turning out. They do not have to have the front feet facing forward. The standard actually says that they can turn out. The phrase they use is a trifle. You call it, talk about a trifle, I think of a food, but okay. Slight, a trifle. The important thing is, to me, is the shape here.
Oval.
Look how much bone he has. Remember how tall Matilda was? I can't even get my fist under him. So look at that beautiful bone wrap in. The front legs are not straight. This is because he doesn't have much hair. It's a great way to see it. So remember at the very beginning I said all dachshunds are chondroplastic dwarfs. Their bones aren't straight. None of their bones are straight. If you ever go to the vet and they're drawing their blood, the bones aren't straight. This bone goes like this, but it also has a curve to it, like this. So if they're going to draw the blood, it's actually over here when they're drawing blood.
How many times have we been and they're like, we're just taking it out of the neck. We can't do this.
It's true. Lovely head. And again, underjaw. Dachshunds should have underjaws. Can you guys see that? You should be able to see the underjaw.
So we got a question. Lynn Dolan asks, at what age do you start health testing hearts, eyes, patellas, etc. your dogs?
Oh gosh, at least 18 months.
Yeah, I mean we usually wait till about 2. So, and being that you were just talking about wraps, let's go. Adam Peterson, can you explain wraparound fronts?
Yeah. Did I do that good enough? Should I do more?
Yeah, you can do a little bit more.
Okay, so I like him because he actually has a really nice wrap. He's black though, so you can't see as well.
Yeah, why don't we put him back and let's bring out a dog. You want to bring out Al?
I have Charles and Allie both.
Let's do Allie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because she has less hair.
She has less hair. Yeah.
Al.
And while we get her on the table, why don't we hit this, because you've done this on a few dogs now. Jennifer Landers Morado asks, can you please explain why you use your fist under the chest and ribs, and what does that tell you? Maybe touch on that a little bit more.
Sure. So I'm just trying to give a point of reference. So for me, my fist, I know how high that is on every dog. So that's how I'm gauging how much air there is between the dog's body and the table. So station is what I'm gauging. This dog is a really big show dog. Her mom couldn't finish her because this is what she did in the ring. We co-own her, but her name is Allie. This is actually Sky's sister, for those of you that knew Sky, who's in Japan now, but he was the dog that was shown last year. So I'm going to walk through fronts again. Al, could you sit straight or stand? Okay, wraparound front. Dogs that have wraparound fronts, like Bassets, it's a special thing about chondroplastic dwarfs and dachshunds. So when you're looking at the front, these legs should not come from the shoulders straight down. See the difference here? If this were to go straight down, instead, when you look at it, I'll give you a treat, hold on. When you look at her front here, see how they get closer together here?
So, like if you were to remove the chest from between the legs, you would see a puzzle piece, like a tube, an oval tube. Not a sausage tube, an oval tube that you could sling the keel right through and it would just sit right in those arms.
Inside the legs. So it's this part here is closer together than this part here, wrap. Remember how I talked about I don't clipper? This is why.
This is kind of one of those things, the wraparound, it's almost easier to show somebody when they can actually feel it as well. So
when you're looking at a dachshund and it's coming toward and it's moving as well, These front legs should not be out here, right? They're going to be in a little bit. They are still going to converge. Not a ton, but they're going to converge some. I mean, let's be honest, their legs are 3 inches long. They can only converge so much. But the wrap is so that when you're looking at them from the front, you should not see air here. You should not see these front feet outside here.
Your mom chimed in they're like parentheses.
Yes, like a parentheses. Thanks, Mom. I wish I could explain it more. Adam, if you're paying attention, does she show, are you seeing am I explaining what you're asking? I try to explain it. So shoulders, if you look at it, shoulders, point of shoulder, wrist. That's the wrap. That's what you're looking for. Hopefully. Tom's not giving me any high signs like I'm saying it wrong or doing it differently. So let's talk about who this is. This is Allie.
So Sylvia McGee says something. I think it's like with Bassets. It's helpful to understand that the wrap of the legs provide better support for the dog's front. The front legs that do not converge on these dogs do not support the back adequately. So yeah, I mean they do some sort of support.
Okay, so let's talk about the function of dachshunds. Yeah. This is great. Thanks, Sylvia. I talked about this earlier when Tom and I were prepping. So form follows function. That's a phrase that people hear. The dachshund is bred to go to ground. And so they need to be able to take this body. And they are going to, one thing that people don't realize, they dig with their mouths. So when they're going down, they're using those front feet. They're going to put their body against the ground. They're going to move these front feet to get the dirt out of the way. Why the rear does matter. They're moving the dirt with their front feet. How are they going to propel themselves? That's with the rear. So for function, when they're going down a hole, I can't make the sun go away.
Not the sun.
Oh, sorry. There's an airplane coming. The airport is 5 miles as a crow flies right there. So hold on.
Let's take a quick little pause.
Okay. There aren't as many planes these days, so we got to do it outside. Okay, so going to ground. So yes, Sylvia, where you were explaining how it needs to support the body. Yeah, it not only does it have to support the body, but they have to be able to take those legs and they have to be able to scrunch them up like this and then move dirt. Does this make sense? I know that looked awesome, but think about it as a function. They're going to push themselves down the hole with their rears. They're moving the dirt with their front. This keel and forechest is what is protecting them from the ground as they go down into that hole. Does that make sense to everyone, I hope? You know, if this audience was live, I would get feedback better.
You're getting quite a bit of feedback on the comments.
Okay, so
if I read all the feedback, this would last for hours.
Okay, so this is Allie. As I said earlier, this is Sky's sister. Hi, Al. Hi, Al. Charles' daughter. I think that she is beautiful. She is the one that was supposed to be in season last month. That is not. So, again, nape of neck, arch of neck. To me, beautiful. Shoulders. Well-placed shoulders. Okay? I'm going to move her maybe. She ruins herself on the move. She thinks that she should have booty, and she sticks her ass in the air, which as you can see, she doesn't really have to do that, but it's her thing. I like to think that she's like a supermodel or something, and she's trying to
Yeah, but moving
stylize
her
it.
will be good too, because even if we don't pay attention to how she likes to ride a little butt high, her coming and going, her going looks really good, but her coming at us, we can show an example of up front that is a little wide because she
Tends
does
to
track
do
a
that.
little bit wide. So
Okay, so ribbing, keel for her is about here. Ribbing to loin ratio. A little long in the loin, not awful, but her brother, that was one of his fortes. His keel was probably about here on his body, and his loin was about this long overall, and he was almost twice as big as her. So that's where making breeding decisions, I know what else was in that litter. And we're actually breeding her to rugby. Frozen semen. So Daffy's dad. So he sired a beautiful bitch. I think this bitch is lovely as well. And so I'm very excited to take
this
him.
was her mom, who we had intended to breed to rugby after Allie's litter was
This
born.
litter.
But she only had one litter, and there were some complications during the C-section, so we decided to spay her. But as you can see, Allie doesn't fall too far from her mother. So this is what we're working with here.
So beautiful rear. Beautiful, in my opinion. And the reality is, I would really wanted to breed rugby to Charles. I've had that happen before, where I have two males that I want to breed. You can't do that. I figured out how to have a male carry a litter. So the best way to do that is to take something related to one of them and breed to it. So we're taking a Charles daughter to rugby. But I'm going to move her for you guys. And you're probably going to see her butt high on the go around.
Just the way she is.
Just her. I work really hard to get her to not do it. She doesn't do it all the time. It's just weird and annoying. But I want you to really focus on her down and back. Hi, Al. I'm out of cookies, Al. I have to get a refill. Okay. Allie. Come on. Oh. Come on now. So see how her front is a tad wider than she's actually gotten tighter. And I would expect her to continue to get tighter. Her dad actually, his front improved immensely. Front improved immensely. His front improved immensely between 2 and 3 years of age. But you hopefully can see how she sits naturally a little wide. I don't think it's so much structure, but it's there. Those are our new baby goats.
I forgot to lock them up.
And they're
hungry.
They want bottles. They're not getting bottle. They don't only get fed twice a day, but they don't like it anymore. They think they should still get 3 times a day. It's Mike and Ike, like the candy.
Let's see. So Maddie asks, can you explain what the rear should look like moving away?
Oh, should I move her again for you?
No, I think we were good. We got a couple down and back.
Okay, so the rear, you should see the pads. So when they move away, you should see the pad like this. But a dachshund shouldn't kick out like this high. So I'm going to show you. They shouldn't kick out like this.
Just off the ground.
It should
know?
It should do the same in the back as they do in the front. So they
once
shouldn't
that
be
rear foot's
kicking.
off the ground, the
This is
further it goes up
wasted
is
motion.
wasted motion. Yeah.
So when you're looking at them from the rear and they're moving, I want it to be maybe a little inclined, but like this, and about to there. If you see more than that much, like if you see it starting to come up like that, too much rear. Like this. And I was talking about before, how a belly scratcher. So when the rear comes too far this way, like when you see that rear foot.
Do that from the back side so people can see it with your hand not in the way.
Oh.
From underneath.
Like this.
Yeah.
Sorry. So when you see a rear, she doesn't naturally move this way, but when you see a rear foot like this underneath moving,
the classic tummy tapper.
Yes, that's wrong. So they shouldn't be, the motion shouldn't be like a full pendulum, like this. Like this. It shouldn't go out that far and come forward this far. The motion needs to be efficient, moderate. Does that make sense? Are you laughing at me?
Yeah, she's really enjoying that stretching you're doing on her.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to answer questions and be helpful to people. Yeah, I'm out of treats, Al. Peanut butter and oat Zook minis.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored, but I do like them. They're clean. So to me, this is a lovely bitch. She's 4.
Yeah.
She's had a singleton litter. So we know she works. And when she comes in season, she will go to rugby. If I can find a vet that will actually do a breeding for me. Non-essential, I'm told. Little do they know. It's essential. It is essential.
All right, we're not going to get into that.
Okay, I have one more dog, and then we're going to open it up for a question and answer session. So this is Allie. This is my last dog.
For all of you who have stuck with us this far, thank you. We appreciate it. We hope you appreciate it. It's not like we're at dog shows.
I know. I don't know if Diane McCormick is on, but Diane's natural still. So this is Charles. He is now a UK champion. I'm very excited to say that. And he is literally ungroomed. I mean, he's blown out and stuff, but he's ungroomed. This is Allie's dad. This is one of those breedings that I wanted to breed a male to a male. So I wanted to breed Brando to Bob.
Let's see if I think I have some pictures of... Did I ever show pictures of Brando? I think I did. There's Brando.
But how about Hadley? Hadley.
No, we bring Hadley up.
So Bob was from Cindy. Hadley was Quagmire's sister. Bob and Dharma. Bob is a grandson of Tori, who was Dallas's sister, June Mann's bitch. And
so
Bob
that was Hadley up on the screen.
On the screen, Hadley was Dharma, which is a Dallas daughter, bred to Bob. And then I bred Hadley to Brando. You already showed Brando?
I did.
Oh, I missed that. And this is Charles. So this, again, was that breeding I did of Brando to Hadley. I wanted a male. That was the whole goal. You know, one of those rare breedings that you want a boy.
And what'd you get? 6
bitches and 1 dog. Thank God you turned out, buddy. He turned 7 in September. And he's starting to get, this is a phrase that we use here at Pramada Koradox, he's starting to get ginger fro.
It's when the hair just starts getting...
So it starts to curl. They're older.
Well, and it kind of let's go. His dad was the same way. It goes back to when they're being shown younger because, in the grooming we're raking and we're combing and they're getting a little bit of their neck hair stripped out and prepared. And so I think that hair, once you're not maintaining it, just kind of says,
No.
I'm going to go wild. I'm free. I can do what I want.
It's true. So Charles, he's pretty much retired. Based on how he's eating at home, he's definitely retired. Tom.
He's done what he needed to do.
So, look through the hair, people. Look through the hair. Neck. Still, neck. If I could have changed this dog, I would make his neck an inch longer or take his shoulders, which I think are beautiful. I'm going to try and get him to not sit. He's decided that he's done showing and he sits all the time now, which he never used to do. Okay, so shoulders. Pay attention to me. Upper arm, shoulders. So this angle to me is very nice. Here, okay. 90-degree angle almost, right? But a little forward. I would like to move it back. If I moved it back an inch, his neck would be longer too, if I move this back. But keel, he's hairy. Keel. About here. Can you guys see that? I always go the wrong way. Keel. Here. Forechest. Keel. This dog embodies a lot of what I consider moderate. Balanced.
So since we're looking at him ungroomed, Lindy asked, can you explain what causes the small dip on the top line right behind the withers? Yeah.
Is this what you're talking about?
I'm assuming that's...
Yeah. He's chunky is one thing. So especially...
He's got a little fat roll up there.
There's extra here. A lot of dogs get it though. So typically what this is when the shoulders are farther forward, then essentially the structure is that where if the shoulders are back further, you wouldn't see this. This is a natural dip, so top lines aren't straight. The back of a dog is not straight. The spine, okay, goes like this. And if you watch them, if you look at not necessarily an x-ray, but the skeletal drawings, dogs' necks and top lines, you'll see it in the skeletal drawings, and they come down and they have a bit of a slope and then they go up, right? So this is that natural curvature that if the shoulders are back further or you don't have as much of a wrinkle here, you wouldn't necessarily see it. And you'll see it frequently in dogs. If they have lovely shoulders, it frequently is gone. But also, a lot of people are very adept at grooming it out if the dogs have it. He is ungroomed, to reiterate, and fat. 4 weeks, 5 weeks since his last show, and he has been eating his way through it. Yeah. So, top line. Debbie, we'll just say his name.
Charles.
Thank you.
Charles.
So, top line. Slight rise of the loin. Beautiful rear. What I love about this dog is how, like I said before, how moderate he is. There's nothing extreme about this dog. Nothing. And he's been a great producer. I think because of that.
This is a good... I think this is a good dog to go to... let's see, where did I just had the comment here.
I'm going to show you a front again.
All right. Nikki Rigsby asks, what head features do you value greatly besides underjaw?
Okay, well, not a head breed, but what do I value greatly? Expression, eye shape.
And so that's what brings me to this dog's head, because we've looked at some really beautiful heads that we have, and I think he has a very nice head, but there are some things on this head that we would like to improve on, and so I thought we would talk about his eye and his...
So, to me, Tom and I disagree on this dog. I look at this dog's head and I think it's beautiful. because he looks just like his dad, and we all have those things. So some things about him that I like a lot are the balance of his head. I know, cookies. So it's a wedge, okay? What would I fix? A little flatter on the top.
Right, take that. It's a little hard to see on camera. Well, there you go. You can see it on the side profile. A little bit of what I would say rounded on the back skull. Yeah.
This.
And then his eye is actually a little bright out, so he's looking pretty good right now. But sometimes he'll give you that expression, and his eye will go not round, but almost round.
Right. And it should be almond.
And it should be almond.
It's nice and dark.
Yeah.
And he has lovely shape, lovely placement. The eye should not be low. It should not be small. And he's actually getting some super frosty. I said he's 7. He's probably one of the earliest grays that I've had. I think he'll be a full frost by 8. I know, you're so good. So what is important to me in a head? I don't want it too wedge. So it shouldn't be a quarter of a pie. It should be like a normal serving of pie. A wedge, not like this. Charles, be good. Not like this. This is a nice wedge. Okay? I want the nose to be dark, big, easy to see, prominent brow and bridge here. He has what I call Brando brow, so see how his eyebrows are really prominent? We call that Brando brow in our world. Cheeks. This goes with this part of his head. So a little bit of cheek and a little bit of roundness to me. So if I were to gauge a head, what's important? Tapers from top or the side when you're looking at it. Slightly arched skull and muzzle, meaning that Roman nose I was talking about. So from straight to slightly arched. You look at his in profile, he actually has a very slight arch to his head. What's important? They shouldn't have a big cheekiness. When you look at their heads, I prefer you to look at it with the ears up to see that expression, not like this. You know, they specifically talk that the head should frame the face. The ears should frame the face. Underjaw, the muzzle shouldn't be snipey, so it should be a pleasing expression.
So Jackie McAvoy
Yep.
asks, what is correct tail carriage while moving? I figure we can do this before we move him.
Yeah, so tail carriage. So carriage should be an extension of the top line. So when they're moving, you're going to get all different things. I personally hate what I call the dead tail that literally doesn't come off the ground. For me, and the standard continuation of the spine, no kinks, twists, or curvature. That's pretty vague, but okay, from the tail. To me, this would be a good tail set carriage. Sorry, not set. This is a good tail set. This is good carriage. He can carry it even up like this, a little high. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as it comes off the top line, if the end comes up, it's okay. But when the whole tail starts to do this, that's too high. Not a basset, not a beagle.
And let's clarify, there's a difference between a very excited dog when they're first starting their down and back, say, and they're carrying it up a little high. Then when they start going around, it levels out to a natural extension versus a dog who just carries it high the entire time. So you have to take a little bit of the dog's temperament and excitement into.
And for me, the carriage of the tail is probably one of the least important things in a dog. The biggest challenge is
let's be honest, they shouldn't be sweeping the floor with it because that's indicative of a very
of a
skittish, poor temperament.
Which is a big problem. Not that it's a problem in the breed, but it is a major fault. Dachshund temperament, the phrase is they are courageous to the point of rashness. So if you're in the ring with a dachshund and they get a little fiery, you shouldn't fault them for that. Or they look at the big dog in the ring next to you and hackles go up and they're going to face off with them. Again, you shouldn't fault them for that. That's what their standard calls for. They are supposed to go in a hole after a badger, which could eat their face off. And they're supposed to go down that hole, get it, and then bring it back out. So you can't be super
Or at least
sweet.
hold on to it till you can pull them out.
And pull them out. So remember, that's why that tail is important. Where they get in trouble at the other shows, you're not supposed to touch their tail. This is a handle. So when dachshunds go in a hole, and they are down there, in that hole with this prey of some sort, and they've gotten to the point that they have it and they can't get any further because it's heavy or it's big or it's stuck, and you see that tail, the farmer or the hunter or whatever, you grab that tail and you literally pull them out of the hole by the tail. It's a handle, which is why kinks and twists and things like that are problems, because it's a weak point in the tail and it could break. So that's why it's important. Carriage isn't nearly as important as the set, but it can really throw off the look of the dog, especially in profile moving. Just like how they hold their head can really change the profile in moving.
Which leads to, Maddie asked another question: where should a dachshund carry their head when moving and standing naturally? I feel many look very upright. You know what, Maddie? Let's take Charles for a move down and back, and then we will hit that question and start our Q&A, because we're almost 2 hours into this, and we should probably do that.
Yeah. Good boy. Charles, am I just going down back? Oh, okay. Because he actually carries his head really well. Charles! Okay. Charles, you ready? Let's go. Come on. Not upright, out in front, at an angle. See that on his head? I'm not holding it up. They are not Afghans or poodles. Charles. Good boy. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Good boy. So you'll see in this, especially on the down and back, he'll hold his tail up a little more when I slow him down. I did this whole thing and never broke my ankle in that mole hole. Good boy. So when you watched him move in profile, I used some phrases when I was talking about it. So these dogs should have their heads, as you can see. See how it's out at an angle. So they are not Afghans. They are not poodles. They are not, I don't know, sometimes they do it in Cocker Spaniels. But it should be natural. It should not be upright. It should not be vertical. It should be a smooth line and then the tail. So I don't want the head up like this. And if you are looking at a dog, and when it's stacked up, their ear is over their front leg, there's probably some issues with those shoulder angles. The ear and the head should be in front. The shoulders are back here. You want to sit and hang out while we do the Q&A?
Yeah, let me scroll back up through some of these comments and see if there's some questions we missed. And if you have some questions...
we're going to hang out for another 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, or so. And then do some Q&A. So feel free.
I'm going to have some water.
I think I've got most of them. Maddie asked, where are Charles's gummy bears? We're out of gummy bears. Maddie has been in quarantine. We haven't been to the store.
He's asked that same question, Maddie.
Yeah. Jessica Rosema asks, what do you feed them, brand, and amount?
Oh, okay. We're a Pro Plan family. So it varies by dog, how much they eat, but he's actually picky. We tried to put him on Bright Minds. He's a snob. He doesn't think it tastes good.
He ate Bright Minds for about 4 days, and then he kicked it all over his crate and wouldn't eat it.
So
he's back to Pro Plan.
He's back to his regular Pro Plan. Bright Minds is a senior Pro Plan food. So the standard boys typically eat 3/4. We feed twice a day. So they eat 3/4 of a cup twice a day. The girls typically eat a half cup twice a day. Callie, the old matriarch, she actually eats a 1/4 cup twice a day. You know, I know how she feels. It's like every kibble puts on a pound. So
let's be honest, she also sits by the dinner table every night.
Yeah, so does Charles. So what we eat, they eat, because Tom specifically does not have any issues with giving dogs people food. I know some people don't like it. If you're a house dog, you have an iron stomach. So, I mean, and I say you're a house dog. Almost everyone gets house time, but Charles and Callie live in the house. So.
Marianne McCullough asks, can you please elaborate more on the placing of your fist underneath and what you expect space-wise?
Yeah. Here. So I'm just trying to I'm using my fist as a point of reference so that when I'm looking at a dog, I'm not fooled by hair or the ground or the way the person stacks it or handles it. So it's just giving me a point of reference for how high off the ground the dog is.
So for instance, if I use my fist to go under a dog and I get under there and there's still clearance above, he's definitely too high of a station. If my fist, it's resting right on it, it's probably still a little too high of a station.
So it's just a point of reference. So it's very hard to say, oh, how tall is that dog?
Well, because it also has to go with the rest of the size of the dog, the balance of the dog. A different.
So like
Charles is going to be higher than Allie.
Right. So this dog goes in, and I literally just touch the deepest part of his keel. So to me, that's very reasonable. But on Matilda, remember I showed you guys Matilda, I put my fist under her and there was still air underneath. To me, that it is merely a point of reference, and it is how I was trained to gauge the height of a dog. So it's not, oh, this is 4 inches and it should be 4 inches and that's what the rule is. It's something I learned from Scotty people because it's something that they do in Scotties, but this never changes no matter what. So this height under a dog is how I gauge how tall they are. So when I'm comparing standards, this is a point of reference. On Charles, I put it under and it touches. On the dog we showed last year, Sky, I could barely get my hand under his chest. So to me, he was, in my opinion, he was a little low to the ground. Does that help? Marianne, when you just tell me if that helps when you get to
Tanya Renee asks, do you use any nutritional supplements in addition to their meal regime?
So the older dogs do get mobility bites, so like a little glucosamine chondroitin. And if I have a dog that seems to have a little bit of a dryness to their coat, I will use a fish oil or a salmon oil, a pump into their food. But the vast majority of them just get Pro Plan. Dry. Crunchy.
Deborah Garrison asks, I noticed when you are stacking, you don't pull the back legs out as far as I'm used to seeing. Is there a reason not to pull back?
So the rear should be stacked with the rear legs perpendicular to the ground. Charles, I know that you think you're retired and you don't have to do this anymore, but you can. So when stacking a dog, the front legs, same spot. I'm gonna bribe him because he's decided he doesn't need to stack. The stacking of the rear is really the same on every dog. Technically, structurally, you should stack them with the rear leg perpendicular. So perpendicular to the ground. I'm not sure what you're used to seeing. Maybe you're used to seeing people stretch out the rear. When you stretch out the rear more than perpendicular, they're getting overstretched. But the rear should be stacked perpendicular to the ground. I would put you on a leash maybe to see it. Maybe other people overstretch, but to me, I want that rear leg perpendicular to the ground. Tom, am I missing something?
Nope.
Okay.
Phoebe Callahan asks, at what age do you place your pet puppies?
Well, so let's start with, first off, when the litter is born, I know whether or not I'm keeping something from the litter. So that's right off the bat. If I am unfortunate enough to get a kink in a tail or something that I can gauge is definitively a companion puppy, in my opinion, we will place anytime after 8 weeks, typically more like 10 weeks. And if we've decided that, at our early evaluations that something is, our show potential pick that we want, we'll place our companion puppies, all of them by 12 weeks. We frequently place all but 1 or 2 that we're going to evaluate longer by 12 weeks of age.
Oscar Martinez asks, you mentioned you are proud of all your dog's front paws. What makes them great? Size, angle? What makes a bad paw?
Feet. I didn't get to show feet. I'm very proud of our feet. And his is ungroomed. I should put Allie back up. So, feet. He has slippers right now, but beautiful feet. So, tight, arched foot. Hope y'all can see that. A tight, arched foot. It's a big foot. What makes a bad foot? I'm going to use some phrases here. Dead baby hands.
Why don't you, is Callie still near us?
Yeah.
Why don't you switch and put Callie back up, because Callie doesn't have the best feet.
So these are beautiful feet. Tight, nicely arched, a big foot. Hi, Charles.
And while you're getting her, I'm going to answer this. Lori Emrentrout, sorry if I said that wrong. Do you always use frozen semen? How would you have a dog to capture semen? We don't always use frozen semen, and when we get a dog collected, we do it at a business that specializes in that sort of thing. And they collect and freeze it. We don't do it ourselves.
But you can.
You can, but we don't.
We do collect semen ourselves, though.
We do collect for our own side-by-side breedings, collect for a fresh chilled AI, but not for frozen.
So typically when you're collecting, you'll use a teaser bitch, is what we call it. Unless you have a dog like Charles, who he thinks if you put a bitch on the table, he's supposed to breed it, so he doesn't care if it's in season or not. So you can collect him with anything. Her feet actually aren't awful, but
they're not my favorite.
So see how there's not as much arch? I feel like I have an echo right here. There's not as much arch. You can see between the toes. They're kind of splayed
Turn her
a little
more sideways so you can get a side view. There you go. You can see how they're a little flatter.
See flat. You can see the toes. Charles. Then I used phrases like dead baby hands or pancakes. So when the dog is moving, that foot should hold its form. If that dog comes towards you or is moving and it literally goes down and you see the toes spread out like a pancake, those aren't good feet. So I'm very proud of them. That we don't She doesn't produce this very often.
Lisa Grace asks, would you be concerned with the prevalence of an umbilical hernias showing up in litters? Yeah, we don't really have that issue, but yeah, if you were having litters with constant umbilical hernias, then I would look into possibly it being a genetic factor. Ania Del Rey asks, what would you say is the most important factor for a nice long coat? Genetics, conditioning, nutrition?
So this is where I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier. Quality, not quantity. And I'm a firm believer that you spend 80% of your energy is breeding a good coat, and 20% is what goes in it. Okay, I'll change that a little. It's 70% is what you put in it, is what you breed, 20% is what they eat, and 10% is what you do before you go in the ring. I'm bringing back a dog, Edward. Long hair coat. If I could put this coat on every dog in my kennel, I would. Literally. It's not long, like it's not draping. Doesn't have to. It's not supposed to. Can you tell it's a long hair? This dog could literally go out in the field and be covered in mud. You could put him in his crate. It would dry. 75% of the dirt would fall off naturally. The other 25% I would brush out. This dog could be, stay off the microphone. This dog could be bathed and air dried and it would look like this.
Virginia Patton asks, what method do you use to keep teeth clean and tartar free?
That's awesome. Knuckle bones and genetics. Some dogs just have bad teeth.
Well, yeah, but we brush our dogs' teeth every week. They get their nails done every week.
Teeth, nails, and ears.
Yeah.
Every week. Here, you guys can see. Look how clean they are.
But yeah, the white knuckle bones from Red Barn, that's what we use. They just keep the teeth really clean. So. And they
will chew them in the very back. So
once they get small enough.
So they'll chew those bones in the back and keep them clean. I use a toothbrush with a little Listerine and a natural toothpaste. A lot of people use like just baking soda and like a hydrogen peroxide even.
Yeah. You just have to be careful with that. The baking soda can be a bit abrasive and wear off the
enamel.
Lexa Richmond asks, can you discuss the temperament personality differences between the three coats?
I can. Dachshunds. I'm going to talk about just a couple things about dachshunds overall. So temperaments. Long, smooth, and wires. Smooths were the original breed. I know all of you smooth breeders like to tout that fact. I would consider the smooths to have a more independent, maybe less soft. I don't want to say that they're hard, but just not necessarily as soft. The long hairs, I know the best, of course, because that's my breed, and they have more of a spaniel temperament because of that spaniel that was bred into them. So softer, people-oriented, playful, snuggly, and then the wires can have a little more terrier in them, but they're, to me, more clownish, more funny. Basically, just, I think the clown-like is part of it. Like I said, they can be tougher. Temperament is so important in dachshunds. They are a big dog with short legs. People don't realize, so because they're dwarfs, if they had normal lengths based on their body length, if they were normal size, they'd be like a Springer. So they're a bigger dog. So that temperament is very different. I think the temperament between standard and miniature is different as well. The miniatures can be more hesitant, can be more sensitive. So the standards, in my opinion, can be more confident. But the temperament also varies by breeder. I mean, let's be honest, there's breeders whose dogs are more outgoing and, conducive to doing even performance events. So we like to talk about the breed in particular, but there's ranges within them. But I would definitely say that the wires are more clown-like, maybe more terrier-y just by breeding as their history. Longs are softer, and the smooths are more steady German independent temperament.
Let's see. Bobby Sandoval asks, how common are singleton litters at Pramada Koradox? Do you think it's a timing issue, genetic? I wouldn't say we have that many singletons.
No, it's funny. When my mom stopped breeding in the late 90s, she actually called herself One Puppy Pam. Like, we had like 5 litters in a row of singletons back in the day. We've had 2 singletons.
Yeah, well, let's see. Allie had one last year.
And Hero.
And that was it, yeah.
So we've had 2 singletons total. Do I think they're prominent? No, and I firmly believe the size of the litter is based on the bitch primarily, how many eggs she produces, and your timing.
Yeah, I mean, Daffy had her first litter. She had 8. When we bred her to the frozen, we were like, if we get 2 or 3 puppies, we'll be happy. And she had 6 puppies from frozen semen that wasn't of great quality.
So the size of litter, I think, is how the bitch produces, which I think is genetic, and I think it carries from on the bitch line. How many puppies they produce, how well they produce, how good they are as mothers, and how easily they whelp.
Lisa Mackey asks, I noticed differences in pasterns and dogs. Can you speak to that? What is ideal?
Oh, okay. So the pastern on a dachshund, it's hard to see because dachshunds have such short legs, but they should have it. They should not be down in pastern at all. It should be upright. Who do I have that doesn't? Here, Daff. Here, just sit. You can just sit. So the dachshund, like I said, has a very short leg, so their pastern is right here. Very, very short. It should be like this. Very, very much straight. So foot. Let's not sit sloppy. Sit straight. So it should be straight. And it's funny, when I groom, so typically when I do a show groom, I take the hair off right here at the pastern. So the hair, I will trim the hair between this pad and this pad. I will trim this so you can actually see the pastern. Not many people do that, I guess, but I do, so that you can see this, because it should be straight. It's rare that I see it upright, but one thing that the pastern will be an issue is it's the only structural disqualification in a dachshund, which is knuckling over. And that occurs here, like this. When the dog knuckles over, you'll see it like this. The foot will stay. It's hard to make a dog do it that can't function, but this will actually come over the top, and it'll be a knuckle over. And then that's from the weak pastern and a very straight front. I find it odd that it's the one disqualification that we have. I rarely see it.
Brienne Major asks, how do you see your breeding program evolve in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, gosh. Well, can I describe the perfect dog? I can. Can I make it? I don't know. Thanks, Brienne. If I were to take... So the 2 breedings we have planned, Daffy and Allie, I can tell you that if I get what I want out of those 2 breedings, I would like a Daffy that carries black and tan, which is why I'm breeding her to Ryder, because Daffy is homozygous red. So I would like between, in the next 2 generations, to produce a bitch of the quality that I have with Daffy and Allie, about the size of Allie, Carrie's black and tan, a top line similar to Daffy, with that amazing, super sweet temperament. And I want to keep my fronts and solid rears, and I want to extend my ribbing and keel overall and shorten my loins.
Yeah, and I think overall, and probably most people feel, maybe bring that whole assembly back a half inch.
The whole front assembly. That
so.
whole. So when I say the front, so I think we have good shoulders. I feel that in the grand scheme of things, we have pretty good, people call shoulder layback and length of upper arm. So this is good. I just want to shift the whole thing on the body, which isn't easy to do. I mean, I don't want to say fixing the front, because in my opinion, the fronts are pretty darn good now. But they can be better, and that's what I would like to do. And if I were to make those are the bitches that I'd like, and you know, I would love a black and tan that has a coat like Edward. And I would say that my next stud dog is going to have I don't know. It's really hard to describe it. Those two breedings I'm very excited about. The Daffy Ryder daughter will probably go to Edward for breeding. And the goal from that would be to, like I said, get that coat. The ultimate dachshund, like I was just describing, if I were to take all of my animals and put them together and make, you know, the best in pieces, you know, Allie's head, Daffy's shoulders, Allie's rear. Let's put Allie's loin with Daffy's ribbing and keel. Let's make them carry black and tan. That's what I do. I mean, if I could breed dogs to dogs and bitches to bitches, it'd be easier, but you can't. So it's going to take a little time, but that's my goal. And you guys can all watch my Facebook page and my website and see what I get from Daffy Ryder and Allie Rugby.
We touched on this a little bit earlier, but Phoebe Callahan asks, health testing for dachshunds, what is absolutely necessary?
According to DCA, nothing.
Right. So,
to be honest, gosh, if there could be a test for cancers, that'd be amazing, but there's not.
Yeah.
So absolutely necessary. I guess thyroid. Like I said, we do what we consider as the minimum, which is stifles. So there are some issues with, it's called pes varus, typically in dachshunds. I would say more commonly in smaller tweenies, pet breeding. But it's a problem. It's a structural deformity where essentially you get a curve in the rear.
Yeah, but you're not.
But you can't test for that. So we check stifles, we check hearts, and we do a thyroid test. The eyes are funny. We check them after 2, but according to Chick, you have to check them every year, which to me gets a little tiresome to do it every year. I would say if I were to change anything, I wish they would let us check them at 2 and then check them again at 7 and 10.
Right. Just to see the progression, if there's a progression.
Right. But yeah,
because let's be honest, a dog at 2 is going to see better than a dog at 12. It happens in people. It's just
so. So yeah, dachshunds in general, I think, are a very healthy breed. I don't breed mini wires, so I'm not up to par on La Flora. Nor do I deal with PRA. But, we do have Ryder, and Matilda's sister is very small, and we may breed her to a miniature. Somebody asked previously about a breed down. That may be a true breed down, because that intent of that would be to produce adults that weigh 11 pounds or less. But because my bitch doesn't have many, the PRA isn't really an issue. But in standard long hairs specifically, we don't really, they're in general a very healthy breed.
Lots of comments and appreciations and everything, and no more real questions coming in. We're hitting at almost 2.5 hours here, so I think it's a good time to just wrap it up.
Thanks, everybody. So I have my little spiel so I don't forget what I'm supposed to say at the end.
Don't forget. Don't forget. Yeah.
So thank you all for your wonderful questions and comments. I hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into our breeding program, and that maybe our passion has inspired you and your passion. And finally, huge thank you to Canine Chronicle for giving us an amazing opportunity to share with their followers as well.
Yeah. I think it's been nice. The weather's cooperated. The planes have not been flying over.
It's been good.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great rest of the weekend. I believe they're doing another...
And I think there's another event on Sunday.
Tomorrow.
With a kind of a breeding forum.
Yep. So tune in to Chronicle for that as well. And thanks again. And hopefully we'll get to do something like this again sometime.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great
day.